Life hacks, life lessons, all things positive and building a better you. I'm your host, Rob Robertson, owner of My Warrior Ethos Life Coaching. If you can tell from my swag that I have on tonight. Um, I'm probably going to be kind of all over the map tonight. I've got a lot on my mind, a lot of things that I want to talk about. First off, I hope the last couple of weeks have been great for you. I hope you've had some positive things happen in your life. If you have, feel free to share. You can kick it out there with a message on the screen. I can and take a quick look at it and see if I can't get it thrown into the show for you. But for me, I do have some exciting news. I finally finished the last of my master's degree. It is finally finished. Up to the just getting the admin portion of it done. The work is finally completed. Thank God. It's been a long couple of years since I started that. And so at this point, like I said, it's just an admin drill. Getting some paperwork done, getting some audits done on my record for them to go ahead and do the conferral of the actual degree itself. Right now, the conferral date that I have is April 1st of this year. So that's when I'll officially graduate. But again, all the work is finally in. And I got to tell you, a couple of weeks ago at our managers meeting where I work, I brought this up and I said, hey, I kind of want to thump my chest a little bit from the fact that I had managed to graduate with my master's. And to be honest, I wasn't at all prepared for the wellspring of emotion that rose up inside of me. And I was really kind of caught off guard by how emotional I got over it. And there were several different things that crossed through my mind. I think pretty much so all at the same time. The first thing was relief that I was done, I think. And then the second thing was elation. And then there was pride, the fact that I'd managed to make it all the way up to my master's degree and get that finished. When I graduated from high school a number of years ago, I didn't know if I'd ever even graduate from college. And eventually I went on to do that. I got an associate's degree, then eventually got a bachelor's, now I have a master's degree. And so getting all that stuff done in one lifetime, is an accomplishment in and of itself, that I was able to stick to it and get all that work done. And particularly the last couple of years, the master's degree was definitely a challenge because I really didn't have any true breaks for the last couple of years. I mean, it was just one class right after another. Might have a week in between a couple of classes, but that was pretty much so it. And pretty much so this year, in particular this last year getting finished, for the most part, I would finish a class on Friday and just pick a new one up on Monday. There was really no breaks in between to speak of, and I hadn't had like in normal college where you might have Christmas break or spring break or something like that. I didn't have any of that. Now, granted, everything I did was online, and I'm not sitting in a classroom, which definitely makes it easier. But at the same time, I really didn't have any breaks, and so everybody that knows me has talked to me and asked me, so, well, what do you plan to do next now that you've gotten your master's degree? And well, I'm going to work on my doctorate. And it's not like I'm getting any younger, if you can tell by the gray in the beard. And so they've asked me, well, why do you keep charging this hard, even though you're kind of staring 60 in the face? And my answer is pretty simple, is that I don't know how to live any other way. I did kind of get off track there for a few years, and kind of lost my drive and my desire to do other things and be at the tip of the spear. And that's where I like to be at. I tell them at work all the time, where I like to be at. It's at the tip of the spear where the action is. And that's kind of still where I'm at mentally right now. I am kind of taking a minute to catch my breath in between this program and my next one as I make a decision on which college I'm going to attend for my doctorate, although I'm looking more and more like it's going to be Liberty University every day. But that said, for me, it's important to just continue to push forward because I think that's how you get the maximum amount out of life. If you're just willing to sit at home and do nothing, or you're not out there, as Billy the Kid said in one of the Young Guns movie, you have to test yourself every day, and I think that's true. If you're not willing to do that, then you're not going to accomplish a whole lot. And particularly for those of us that are veterans, and I think even more so for people that are disabled veterans, I think that's important. And I think it's important for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think it keeps you mentally sharp, and it keeps you physically in tune with yourself. And from my experience, what I've seen when people seem like they just start to deteriorate early in their golden years, so to speak, or they seem to falter, it's because they stop challenging themselves. They stop trying to be, the best that they can be. And for me, if I start that doctorate now, I probably won't finish it till I'm 60 or 61. And then I'll get to that point and say, well, what do I want to do next? Well, maybe I go after another doctorate in some other, avenue of study. I don't know. It's too early to make that call. But I plan to still be doing something. And then as of right now, unless my health comes up and becomes such a major issue that I don't have any choice, I have no plans on retirement. A few years ago, I would have told you 62 and I'm done. But now I just get up every day saying, well, how can I be useful today? How can I press myself a little bit harder? How can I challenge myself a little bit more to be a better person? And all those things, it's just good for your health. There's just no other way to put it. And I think the older you get, the more important of an issue that gets to be. And, of course, another element of this is, I can't, as a life coach, sit in front of somebody and say, well, you need to be doing this and you need to be doing that, when I'm not willing to do the same thing. And so that's, for me, I think in order for me to set that example, I need to be right there on that tip of that spear and showing people, hey, this is how it's done. And I'll be honest with you, some days it's not easy for me. Some days I don't feel like being on the tip of the spear. But at the same time, I'm mentally smart enough to realize that if I want to be a top-notch performer, that's what I have to do. If I'm going to be that guy that's sitting in front of a room full of people and saying, hey, you want to be the best that you can be, you want to be on top of your game, you want to be the guy in the room that everybody's talking to, then you got to be the guy with his foot all the way to the floorboard on the pedal, and showing people, how this is done. And, again, some days it's not easy. I've talked about this before in the past about, the way I work on keeping myself, physically sharp these days. And I'm in the gym, 4 nights a week. Well, it's not always easy going over there to the gym. I'll tell you, there are nights it sucks. Last night was one of them. I got a bad shoulder on this right side, and I'm in there working out last night, and it more or less just failed on me. Well, I can either pack up my stuff and go home, or I can do what I do, and I just find other ways I can work out for the night. I go do something, that doesn't involve me using my arm. Again, just, staying at the top of it, pushing for everything I can get. And, God willing, I'll be able to do that for a long time. I have a friend here in town that worked with me whenever I was a volunteer with the Sierra Vista Police Department. He's a great guy. He just finally, I think, officially retired from everything that he does for the most part. The guy's 82 years old. I mean, I hope to be, a hard charger at least that long, and longer if the good Lord will allow. To go back to something that Clint Eastwood says is, "Don't let the old man in." And I don't plan to do that. I don't think of myself as, being old or anything like that, or even approaching that. I'm not a birthday guy. The people around me at work, kind of know that. My wife kind of knows that. My family kind of knows that, because I just don't want that number to become the issue in my life. As long as I can continue to get out there and be in front of things and be a hard charger and do what needs to be done and take care of business, that's, what I plan to be doing. And, maybe over time, the job I'm at now, I can't say I'm going to be there forever. I may find something else that, maybe I want to do as I get a little bit older. That's possibly true. But at least for right now, today, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm happy with what I'm doing. And I plan to continue doing that. So anyway, that's enough on that. Congratulations to me. I finished my master's degree. Sorry, I'm going to thump my chest a little bit on this one. So anyway, this week I found something that I want to share with everybody. Um, and this comes from a guy. Some of you may recognize the name. His name's Grant Cardone. He's a real estate investor. God, I'm having a hard time talking tonight. Probably because my brain's going 900 miles an hour. He's a real estate investor. And what I have here is his top 10, show you here real quick, his top 10 commandments of sales. And this is a guy who basically started out with nothing, and now he's worth several $100 million. He's made a lot of top, some of the biggest investment deals in real estate that you can possibly make in apartment complexes and housing development. And you can listen to him he's got podcasts, he's got books that you can get, audio books, and when he talks and speaks, he really does get you fired up, and I enjoy listening to him. And even though this is around sales, I think you could remove the word sales from everything on this list as far as these 10 commandments go, and just look at it in terms of life. And I'm going to add some thoughts as I go through here and take a look at this. And the first thing he talks about is dress to sell. And when I was growing up, they used to say, "Clothes maketh the man." And I think there's something to that. If you go in trying to do something and you look like a bum, people are going to treat you like a bum. And I used to tell that. I used to train security officers all the time. And, one of the things I used to tell them was that people are going to treat you the way that you look. So if your uniform looks slovenly and you don't have your hat on right and you don't look like you know what you're doing, then the public's not going to treat you the way that, with the respect that you think you deserve, and they're not going to pay any attention to you. They're not going to recognize your authority. But if you come, dressed professionally and show up to do the job, in clean clothes, and you look like you know what you're doing, and you look like a professional, people are going to be more apt to listen to you. So you got to show up dressed the part, as they say. And so, again, show up dressed to sell. You want to sell yourself, you're going to have to look like you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about. Item number 2, be proud and positive, okay? Confidence makes all the difference. So if you're not confident in the message that you're sending, the receiver of that message is probably not going to buy into it as much as you'd like for them to. So, if you're kind of mumbling over your words, you're not speaking clearly enough, or you don't take the information that you want to put out and you kind of go over it a little bit and be prepared to speak in a professional manner, people are not going to be so apt to listen to you. So you have to be kind of proud and kind of positive. Posture means a lot. Body language means a lot. So if you seem confident in that message that you're sending out, the person on the other end is going to understand that. They're going to pick up on that, and they go, "Wow, man, this guy, he reaches me with his message just because of his positivity and, how confident he seems in what he's saying." And, I try to bring that to every one of these shows that I do, and hopefully it comes across to everybody that they kind of pick up on that, that I'm really confident that I believe in what I say, as far as getting out there. And again, I think, for me, it's just a matter of getting out there and just trying things. Are you going to be successful every time out? No, you're not. I mean, that's just the nature of the game that we get out in, as we try to be successful people. But that doesn't mean you can't still be positive and you can't still be confident in your demeanor and sell that, so to speak, to the person that you're dealing with, so that way they can kind of pick up on it. The next thing is called visualize the sale. Now, where I would twist on this a little bit to make it more relevant to the daily person is that you want to begin with the end in mind. That's what Stephen R. Covey, who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, used to say. You want to begin with the end in mind. So visualize where you want to be at. So, for me right now, as I'm talking to you guys, I'm saying, well, I'm going to go get my doctorate. Well, in my mind already, I've already got it. I just got to complete the steps to get there. So you figure out where it is you want to go, whatever that goal is. So you set a goal of, let's say, for example, you want to lose 100 pounds in weight. So you get up this morning, let's say you're 270, and you say you want to get down to 170. So set that as your goal in your mind. visualize what you're going to be like at 170, and that's where you want to focus yourself at. So, visualize that end result. Don't visualize, so much where you're at now. Don't visualize all the hard work that's, don't discourage yourself by visualizing, the hard part of this. Visualize the end result. Say, okay, and then ask yourself, how do I get from here where I'm at to what I'm visualizing? How do I take those steps? What are the action items I need to complete to get that done? So you want to visualize that end result, so that way you can get to it. The next thing is be sold on your own offer. So a little bit of this you can almost twist back around and say, well, that's kind of like the same thing as what you said with be confident and be proud and be positive in what you do. If you don't believe it, how are you going to get somebody else to believe it? So if you have something that you are trying to sell, and mind you, selling is not always about making money or selling a product to get something. Let's say you have an idea that you're trying to get everybody on board with. Let's say, for example, I'll use this. Okay, so back whenever I was head of security at the chemical plant, one of the things I wanted to do was switch from the normal 8-hour shifts to 12-hour shifts because I saw that they would have more time off as officers if we did the 12-hour shifts. So I had to sell that to them in order to get everybody to buy into it. In order to get everybody to buy into that, I had to believe it. It had to start with me. I had to believe in my message before I ever took it to them. So you have to be sold on your own narrative of what you're trying to get everybody else to buy into, because if you don't, it's going to come across in the way you're delivering it. They're going to pick up on the fact that this guy is not buying his own BS. And that's not what you want. You want to be strong. You want to be confident. You want to be clear in your points. I remember I've done a lot of training over the years. One of the biggest things that I used to do was first aid and CPR instruction for the American Red Cross. So I had to sell that program to those students in the room. Well, in the entire time that I taught, which was close to 10 years, I think I had one student fail in that entire time, the first aid and CPR course. And I like to believe a lot of that is because of how I delivered it and I sold it to them. I was confident in my teaching ability. So my message came across as confident. It allowed the students to pick up on the message, made it easier for them to learn from me. Know your value proposition. Again, this kind of gets into the same thing as the last point. You got to know that what you're selling, it has value. So if you don't believe it has value, how are you going to convince that person in front of you it has value? And that could just be as simple as an idea. It can be simple as something you're trying to sell. It could be, just trying to get people on board with trying to accomplish some task that you need to get done. But if they're not sold on what you're telling them, hey, we need to do this, 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 and this, then it's going to make it difficult for them to come on board with you and do what they need to do in order to get those action items done. So you have to, number one, know what your value proposition is. This is what I'm willing to offer. This is what I bring to the table. Are you willing to come on board with me so we can get these things done? Number 6, always agree with your client. And I'm going to circle back around to begin with the end in mind. So it doesn't matter what you're trying to accomplish here. If you're trying to work with another individual to accomplish a goal, okay? If the two of you are not in agreement on what that goal is, you're probably setting yourself up to fail. So, let's say that you want to go in and let's say you want to clean out a room or whatever, and your thinking is at the end of that time you're going to clean out that room and you're going to turn it into an office, but the person you're cleaning out the room with thinks we're going to turn it into a gym. Obviously, we've got a problem here because we may both be on the same page of, yeah, we want to clean it out, but where's the conflict going to come is how we're going to use the room when we're finished. So both of you and the person you're working with both have to come to consensus and say, well, this is what we're trying to accomplish here. Both of you have to be in agreement, or again, it's just going to tank. And so, good lines of communication here. Again, selling your idea to that person, or are they selling it to you? Are you willing to buy into what they're saying, and see their vision and see what their goal is? If you don't have that, it's just not going to have you're just not going to have a clear line or path of success to getting things done. Next point, give a demonstration like a super freak. If you are going to have to sell somebody on something, again, we're talking about you got to be able to put your stamp on what you want to accomplish. So you have to put all your fire, all your emotion, make them again buy into what you're believing. You make sure that your presentation is on par with where you want to go. One thing great that you want to try to accomplish in giving your presentation or talking to somebody that you're trying to get them to agree to come to your goal or help you out with your goal is you got to show where there's a benefit to them. Okay. Again, back to Stephen R. Covey, who talks about win-win relationships. There has to be a win for you, and it has to be a win for that other person or all the other members on your team that you're trying to get done. So whenever you come in there and you want to present something to somebody, you need to be able to show it in such a way that as you're talking to them, they see the value added for themselves or for all of them, or see what they're going to get out of it. Because if there's not some win in there for them, they're going to be less likely to work with you. I mean, yeah, they might help you because you're a good fella and they like you and everything else, but you really want to be committed to your idea. And a way to get them committed to your idea is to show where it benefits them as well. This is what I'm going to get out of it, but here's what you're going to get out of it. Here's the advantages to you, and you just go point by point by point when you explain this. How will you get them to come on board with what you're trying to accomplish? One of the things I think that gets overlooked a lot whenever we're trying to get goals accomplished, we're trying to get things taken care of, is being efficient with time management. Okay. You want to allot yourself enough time to get everything done. You want to make sure that you're setting these goals that way they be accomplished in a reasonable amount of time, that the action steps can be accomplished in a reasonable amount of time. You don't want to set something up in such a way that you can't get it finished in the time that you want to give to yourself, because it's just going to create stress. So you want to be reasonable. You want to be knowledgeable in the time frames that you want to set. You don't want to set something that's excuse me. You don't want to set something that's unreasonable in the amount of time to get it done. You don't want to tell somebody, well, I can have that project done in 2 weeks, when you know good and well it's going to take 4 to 6. Based on the information that you have. You're always better to give yourself, more time to get something done than what you can expect. And I can use my normal job now as like a prime example of this. So if I'm going to come tow your vehicle, and that's what I do at Barnett's Towing, I set up tows. I'm a dispatcher as part of my job. So somebody calls in and says, well, can you come tow my vehicle? And I look on the map at where they are, how far it's going to take me to get there, how long it's going to take me to load the vehicle, then how long it's going to take us to get it back to where it's going to be delivered. And I might look at that and say, well, the map may tell me on Google Maps that, well, we can do this whole thing in an hour. Well, I'm going to tell you 2 hours, not because it's going to take me 2 hours, but I want to give myself a cushion in there, build in a cushion. And so when I give estimates on time, particularly when it comes to towing, I'll say, well, it could take me 2 hours to get this done. Could be a little less, could be a little more. But it gives me time to work with. And you want to do the same thing with what you're trying to do as far as any project you're trying to do for anybody. You want to be efficient with your time. You want to be careful. You want to make sure that what you're doing accomplishes your goals. You don't want to get sidetracked on things that just are time wasters and time eaters. And you want to make sure that you're getting yourself set up to be as successful as possible, with your time. You want to look at all those action steps and say, well, okay, I estimate this action step's going to take me time X. So I'm going to add on an extra 15 minutes for that just to make sure that I've given myself enough of a window. Because at the end of it all, if you tell somebody, well, it was going to take you a month, but you get it done in 25 or 26 days, that looks good on you, whenever you get completely finished. And, one thing, too, also about being efficient with your time, it prevents rework. So you don't have to go back over and redo something because, hey, I had to rush through it to get it finished. Now you get to the end of it and you go, well, this particular section, I wasn't quite as good at getting done because all I did was rush through it to get it completed. Now I got to go back and do it again. Well, now you've had to do the same job twice, instead of allowing yourself enough time to get it finished and doing it right the first time. Now you're doing it a second time, and if somebody's really watching what you're doing, they come along and go, well, why are you doing that all over again? Well, now you're having to explain, well, it's because I didn't prepare, give myself enough time the first time to get this completed. All I did was rush it through, and now I'm having to do the rework, and here we are trying to do this all over again. Again, a lot of this circles around communication. My big thing is communication. I talk about this a lot at work. I think communication is key, and I think communication is important. You have to be able to get your message out. You have to be able to do it in a way that everybody understands and they see the value in what you're talking about. So control the conversation, assume the close. Okay. So if you're going to sell somebody on an idea, you have to be in control of that conversation. Okay. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to be as knowledgeable about whatever topic you're going to go in there and talk about from the minute you walk through the door. So you want to make sure you're doing all your research. You want to make sure you're taking the time to know what all the facts are. You want to try to anticipate as many questions as you can coming back from the other members on your team or from that other person, particularly if you go into a meeting and you're going to have somebody in there that's going to be very challenging. Like for my boss right now, whenever I go in with him, I can guarantee you, his big thing is who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I know before I ever go into his office to talk to him that I have to be able to answer those questions because that's exactly what he's going to ask me. So if I have something happen at work, an incident or something like that, when I walk in that room, I know I got to answer who, what, when, where, why, and how. If I can answer those questions, usually I'll handle about 90% of what I want to deal with him. And helps him, number one, to understand where I'm coming from. Number two, it also sets the preface for him to ask some other deeper probing questions because I've given him some information to work with to start with. And I don't have a problem with that, with him coming back with other questions for me to go back and do other research on. But at the same time, if I can answer those questions, I've probably hit about 90% of what he's going to want to know. And it should be the same thing for you. If you're going to control that conversation, you need to come in with all your facts, all your ducks in a row, as they say. And so, do your research, take your time, build your message before you go in there, and then just control the conversation. And that way, whenever they do ask you challenging questions, you've already got the information. Even if you don't know the specific answer, you could say, I suppose, or my best guess is X, but I will do the research on it to follow up on that and find out for you. And then, of course, if you can do all that and you're able to answer all the questions, now you can move into that close phase with that person and say, okay, here we go. Here are the advantages for me. Here are the advantages for you. Here's what we hope to accomplish. And then finally, and this is the last point, is always persist in the follow-up. So I think one thing that all of us are horrible about is we don't follow up at the end of things to make sure that everything went the way we wanted it to go. So you have to do constant checks on everything. And I'm trying to remember right off the top of my head right now, there was a thing that I learned back when I was doing some FEMA courses. You plan, you see what the results are, you do the medication, and then you kind of replan, to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's kind of the same thing here. Is you want to go back anytime you implement a program, or you're trying to get a goal accomplished, or you're trying to get to some conclusion, you want to constantly be rechecking yourself, and looking to see how that plan is working out, and see if you're getting closer to your goal, getting farther from your goal, you're wasting time on some individual parts that maybe you can eliminate from the process. You got to be constantly following up. You got to be constantly looking at things to see if you're getting where you want to go. And this will also help you out with the people you have involved helping you. You can kind of check on their progress as well to see if they're accomplishing the action items you need to get done. Because if they're getting off track, then your whole program is going to get off track. Your whole process of getting to that goal is going to get off track. Now all of a sudden you start getting to a point where, am I getting to the goal that I want to get to? Am I getting my value out of it? Are the people involved in the program, are they getting their value out of it? That's what you're trying to learn from the constant progress checks, and going back and following up to see, hey, did we accomplish this or did we accomplish that? And hopefully, if you follow all this, and I know this is a lot to throw out there, you can be successful in what you're trying to accomplish. Which I think is super important. That's what we all want to be. We all want to get out there and be successful. And so, again, this is called the 10 Commandments of Sales. I think hopefully that's coming across where you can see it. You can find it online. I found it on LinkedIn. Again, the gentleman's name is Grant Cardone. Again, great motivational speaker. He's been really successful in his life. So I highly recommend checking him out and listening to what he's got to say. He'll definitely get you fired up, and definitely somebody you want to listen to. Anyway, that's enough on that. So on to our segment this month on healthy, wealthy, and wise. So as you know, during Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, I try to focus usually on some health issue, especially for us as vets. A lot of us have medical issues that follow us after our military service. And so I try to find some topic that, helps each and every one of us live a healthier lifestyle. And so this month, I don't know if you know it or not, but February is National Heart Month. And so it's actually called American Heart Month. I'm sorry, American Heart Month. And so I found a company called MedStar did some surveys on this and threw out some information. And once again, unfortunately, we find that heart disease has become the number one health concern in the United States right now. This is topping mental health, cancer, and COVID-19. Amazingly enough, a third of the respondents in this said they did not discuss heart health with their provider during annual physicals. And there's a lot that goes into heart health. You guys have been with me. I've talked about salt. I've talked about diet. I've talked about exercise. These are all things that you can look into, particularly as we get older, and physical things start to not work quite as well as what they used to, right? That we can all take a look at and see if we can make our lives better. So anyway, it's always a good discussion to have with your provider every time you go in there. I don't care what age you are. Looking at your hypertension, your high blood pressure, talk about your diet, look at your weight. Are there some things you can improve? Before you start an exercise program, always discuss that with your doctor before you ever do that. The latest one I'm on, I got taught initially by my physical therapist I had a few years ago, and they're really great to work with me and get on a program that works well for me. That said, I'm always willing to teach somebody what I do to make my health better. That said, at the same time, even if that's going to be the case, I'd still advise you to go talk to a doctor before you pick up on anything. Following up on this, MedStar checked on the public's knowledge on heart health facts and topics. Only 43% of survey respondents correctly identified that heart disease is the leading cause of death right now in the United States. So it's kind of falling off the radar, I think, with COVID being the number one killer, I think, for the last couple of years. Only 29% identified it as the leading cause of death in women. So heart disease is the leading cause of death in women. So if you're a female out there, you definitely want to be talking to your doctor. You definitely want to be spending time with your healthcare provider and making sure you're going after your heart health. Some signs and symptoms of a heart attack. Chest pain or discomfort. I think that's, pretty much everybody knows that one. Feeling weak, lightheaded or faint. Pain or discomfort in the jaw, neck, or back. And I know the one for the back, very often people that feel that is because of the one they call the widowmaker, that main vein that runs down the backside tends to get clogged, and They call it the widowmaker because it is so lethal whenever that one gets to be a problem. Pain or comfort in one or both arms or shoulders. Again, back to see the one right above that jaw, neck, or back. It may radiate into the arms or shoulders. Shortness of breath. And amazingly enough, only 12% of respondents were able to recognize all of these symptoms as being signs of a heart attack. So if you're feeling any of this stuff and you haven't done some, pulled a muscle or something like that where you feel like you've done something to cause this, particularly the older you get and you want to start looking at getting some medical attention to make sure you're okay. You definitely keep an eye on that blood pressure to make sure it's not getting out of control. And the great thing about this is most of this stuff can be prevented. Again, you look at diet, you look at exercise, you look at lifestyle changes. It seemed to me when I was growing up as a kid that, from my perspective anyway, and it was probably a pretty bad perspective, was that the end result for anybody as far as how they were going to die was going to be a heart attack. No matter what you did, that's how you were going out of the world. It was just going to be a heart attack. And that used to scare the living daylights out of me when I was a kid. But most heart issues can be easily addressed. Stay away from the fatty foods again. I've talked about that. Don't be cooking everything in a tub of lard. I'm not saying not to eat the occasional cheeseburger. I do that myself. Nothing wrong with some pizza every once in a while. But just don't make a steady diet of the junk food. That's just going to clog up your arteries and, it's going to cause all kinds of problems. CPR training for cardiac arrest. Less than half of Americans are trained in CPR. And this really is mind-boggling to me, considering how many places offer that. You can... my understanding is, for most OSHA, under OSHA guidelines, any workplace is supposed to have at least one person on site that's CPR trained. And, in this particular case, most offices now, or most places that I ever worked, offered it as part of their ongoing training program of, having a CPR, a first aid trained person there. So that's really amazing to me that, that more people aren't getting it through work. But that being the case, keep your eyes open in your neighborhood. It gets offered, if you're on social media, pops up all the time. Hey, we're offering a CPR and first aid course. Go take it. Most of the time now you can get it for like $20. Even if you don't go to a class, you can find it online and take it and just get the basic information, to be CPR and first aid qualified. And you might save somebody's life just by, sitting down and watching a 2-hour video on how to do something. As they say, knowledge is power, and a little bit of knowledge can go a long way towards saving somebody's life. Of course, the biggest thing is if you do see somebody that's in some kind of medical distress or physical distress, the first thing to do is pick up that phone and call 911. I mean, get some help there. Get somebody who knows what they're doing on scene to help them out. That one's not rocket science. It's said that only 41% of Americans would feel comfortable administering CPR. Again, if you don't do something, they're going to die. The Samaritan Act, for the most part, will protect you, the Good Samaritan Act, as long as you act within the scope of your training. If you've been to a CPR course, obviously, that doesn't give you the training to open up somebody's chest and do open heart massage, so don't be doing that. But if your training is to do CPR and you try that and the person expires, you're not going to get sued for trying to save somebody's life. Well, I shouldn't say you're not. Our society's pretty sue happy, but it's not going to go anywhere. I mean, it's going to get thrown out of court, pretty quick. According to the CDC, screening for high cholesterol should begin in children aged 9 to 11. Again, I think this has a lot to do with what we do with our diet, and we spend so much time eating at at fast food locations, and now we see what's kind of happened with that over the years. I mean, we see a lot of children that are obese or pre-obese, and I don't mean because they're maybe 10 pounds over what the chart says. I mean literally 40 or 50 pounds over what they should be, and that's awful hard on it causes our system to start aging a lot sooner than what it should. And this was something I didn't know as well, that they wanted, that they recommend starting that screening early, and only 4% of respondents knew that. So that's just, the healthy, wealthy, and wise thing for this month, or for this 2-week period. Take care of yourself. Go see your doctor. Talk about these things. Say, hey, am I doing all the right things here? How's my diet look? They'll do blood work on you. They can come back and tell you if you're high cholesterol or not. Now, they can give you, some people are just predisposed to having high cholesterol, and they can prescribe a medication to kind of help keep that down. But there's a lot we can do on our own that can keep that cholesterol level down, that can keep that plaque and stuff from building up in our arteries. Number one is exercise, or I should say number one is diet. Number two is exercise. Staying active, so you're burning up that stuff so it doesn't build up in your system. But as my boss always says, it's just true of this: garbage in, garbage out. So if you're eating garbage, where do you think that's ultimately going to go? You're just going to make yourself sick in the long run if you're eating stuff that you shouldn't be eating. Like I said, a cheeseburger every once in a while is not a bad thing. I mean, we all like them. But if you're eating McDonald's 3 times a day, that's not going to have a good outcome. I mean, you're eventually going to make yourself sick. If you don't believe me, watch the documentary by Morgan Spurlock called Supersize Me, and he did a 30-day experiment where that's all he ate was McDonald's food. He had McDonald's breakfast, he had McDonald's for lunch, and he had McDonald's for dinner, and he packed on a bunch of weight, and his health just went downhill fast. So yeah, you can't be just eating that stuff 3 times a day. It's just not going to work out well for you. But the biggest thing is staying in constant contact with your medical provider. When go get an annual physical. Most insurance policies will allow you to get that done, get those health screenings done for free of charge. I know Aflac will even pay you for some of them to go get those screenings done. You actually get money back in your bank account. So look and find out what your insurance policy will provide for. The annual screening for health sometimes can be done free of charge, nothing out of your pocket. Your insurance will pick up the whole tab. So just something to keep in mind. Take care of yourself. Take care of your health. Take care of your health, it'll take care of your mind, and you'll feel a whole lot better. So that's all I got for this month, guys. If you want to get in touch with me, you can get a hold of me through the Warrior Healing Center, who are gracious enough to let me use their studio to put my message out. I hope what I'm telling you helps. I'm not your guru, but I try to throw out there what I know and what I think, and maybe hopefully start some discussions on some things. I know I'm getting a couple hundred views every time I do this, so I appreciate everybody who tunes in and watches. And feel free to comment. I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you have to say. You can either comment at the bottom of this video whenever it shows up on the Facebook page, or you can get a hold of me at my email address, mywarriorethosaz@gmail.com. That's mywarriorethosaz@gmail.com. And one other thing, too, I want to let everybody know is that I am looking for guests. So if you have an inspirational story you want to share, get a hold of the Warrior Healing Center, and then get a hold of me, or you can just email me and say, hey, Rob, I want to come on the show. I want to talk. I want to tell my story. Hey, I'll be happy to have you on here. And we'll talk and tell everybody about, what your story is, and what you've been through and what you've done, and, how that's impacted your life, and see if that doesn't help somebody else out. Because one thing you're going to find out is, you may not have been through a particular situation, but you may hear that message from somebody else who has. Maybe you're going through something right now. And as Leonard Nimoy says, the more we share, the more we have. And so I think that's important, is to be able to share stories and tell people, what you've been through, so that way they can pick up on it. So again, that's it for tonight. I will be back here in 2 weeks on the 21st. I'm going to try to work on having a guest in studio for that, but if I don't make it, I think we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff for extreme ownership. If you've never read the book, it's by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, a couple of former U.S. Navy SEALs. So I might bring in some topics from that we'll have time to discuss. So until then, enjoy the next couple of weeks. As I like to say, my mantra is ever forward, but dream big, dare to fail, for fortune fails. See, there we go again. I can't talk straight tonight. Dream big, dare to fail, because fortune favors the bold. Y'all have a good evening. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Take care now.